The South African National Defence Force Board of Inquiry is set to probe allegations around the controversial naval exercise in Cape Town. The inquiry will investigate if President Cyril Ramaphosa's instruction regarding Iran's participation was ignored. Several navies from BRICS Plus countries took part in the maritime safety operations that concluded today. Now, the probe comes as the United States has questioned the alleged defiance of Ramaphosa's instructions by Defence Minister Angie Motshekga and the SANDF. Let's talk about this now. I'm joined by Professor Thomas Mandrup from the Royal Danish Defence College. Prof, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. The fact that we actually have a board of inquiry in itself maybe is a place to start. If the president would have been defied, would it just not be as simple as I issued an instruction and you didn't carry it out? Why need a board of inquiry?
Good afternoon, Thabo, and good afternoon to the viewers, and thank you for having me. I think we are looking at a situation right now where I think the Minister Motshekga, she wants to place a responsibility maybe on the people of the chiefs of the Defence Force, maybe. So the question is to who is going to take the blame for this, and of course it falls into a pattern of incidences where we've had the SANDF seemingly, at least, acting independently. We saw the case around the killings of a Hawks investigator and the court case going on at the moment, where the chief defense or the SANDF is paying for the lawyers' bill for the accused special forces units that's been involved in this clandestine kind of activity. We saw the Mapanya, so the chief of defense, visit to Iran and all the controversy that surrounded that. And now we have this incident again, where seemingly someone in the defense cluster has defied, or several people have defied the direct order from the president. And then right now it makes sense to make an investigation into who is responsible and who didn't, because if you look at the press release from today, the minister clearly states that the instruction given to the Defence Force was that the Iran should not participate. And to what extent they have participated, to what extent they only were there as observers, it's still unclear. But I think the biggest problem here is being that they were part of that exercise in the first place. And that's a political responsibility, and that falls back to DIRCO and the Foreign Office.
So you mentioned this particular matter of General Mapanya, which is, of course, the latest in the events between herself and the minister, where they seem to have had a break in communication. Maybe that's what we will suggest it was. But does this suggest a systemic weakness in the communication, or a deliberate defiance of command, and therefore there is either no respect of the command structure or no clarity about the command structure?
But I think it's a good question, and I think it's actually a quite frightened tendency we see, that there's a breakdown in civil military relations, and especially also a breakdown in the role of the Defence Force in society. The role of the Defence Force is that it's responsible to act within the Constitution of South Africa. And as the Ramaphosa, the president, is the supreme commander of the Defence Force, and the Defence Force needs to abide by civilian control. And this could be seen as an indication of a breakdown, to a certain extent, of civil-military relations and civilian control of the Defence Force, which, of course, is a scary tendency. But we've seen, and again, one could claim that this is generals going rogue, and then the responsibility of that is the Chief of Defence, and he needs to go. That might be the conclusion of the board of inquiry. We have to wait and see. But this points to something much bigger, which of course has been a systemic breakdown of the Defence Force over years of marginalization and lack of resources and lack of attention by the politicians. And the politicians, again, looking at what happened in the Congo and the strategic failure of South Africa with the deployment in the Congo with some DRC and then being stuck there and caught by the M23 and the minister, everyone running away from responsibility and all that. So there's been a big breakdown in trust between the political level, the government, the president, and the politicians, and then the defense force trying to do its job. But this again, on the other hand, this is also an example, this exercise itself right now, and what happened with Iran here is also an example of an defense force that increasingly runs and runs its own foreign policy. Why is it that Panya is cited, whether he said it or not, in Iran when he cited support for the Palestinian case and Gaza and support for Iran in a time where South Africa was in a very delicate situation, negotiating with the US due to exactly its position on Iran and stuff like that. Why is it then independently going out and being cited for that? Why is it that Iran is invited at this stage where thousands of people are being shot and killed by an autocratic Islamic regime in Iran? Why is that's a political problem? So we have some issues here which needs to be addressed, and it points to a much bigger problem where the political level need to take responsibility for that. They have the oversight and they have the responsibility to make sure that the SANDF and the Defence Force act within the Constitution. And if the generals do not want to do that, we have a serious problem, and then they need to go and they need to be removed, and we need to have a reform of the Defence Force. But it is a product of many years of bad policies, basically.
Is it just a rift between the two departments, international relations, as well as the Department of Defense?
No, I think it's much bigger than that. You can actually, one thing is if you get clear instructions. At some stage, Iran has been invited to this, of course, to this exercise, and then Durko, of course, has somehow accepted that. So it's and that said, you can be right that there's some level of extremely bad judgment by Durko and some levels of government. And this is, of course, also a government of national unity. One can think about that. We have a DA at the same time be very critical around Iran's participation as a note. But we have one side of this is a very bad political judgment by certain elements of government and the ANC. Yeah. So it's also something about a battle inside ANC on loyalties and all that. So that's one thing of that. The other is, as I said, is about whether the instruction given has been accepted by the Defence Force, or they have as the minister indicates, that someone has either misunderstood, as you formulate in the press release today, or directly acted against the wishes and the orders of the president. And then, of course, we have a serious problem. But it starts by Iran being invited in the first place, which, of course, was totally off the mark, especially politically now, but also due to the nature of the regime in Iran, and especially what we see on the streets of Iran at the moment, where people are being killed in the thousands.
So are we then, therefore, Prof, to believe that 3 Iranian warships made it to False Bay? Nobody at any point would have had sight of this. I mean, I doubt that's possible, because I'm sure there are approvals for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And the president, once these ships have landed, he says withdraw them. Isn't that a little bit too late for the president to have acted? Was he not supposed to have been alerted even before they left Iran?
Yeah, exactly, and that's the same, and it goes back to also the visit by Panya in Iran just before Christmas. You know, the president knew, and so it's bad judgment from Durko, and so it's bad foreign policy, because they were invited to participate here, and it's a bit late that they can participate in the hospitality football match in the weekend and win that tournaments over Russia and all that, and then they ordered to not participate in the exercise anyway. It's a bit late, because the damage has been done. And the big problem is that, as I said before, is that they have been invited in the first place. And the president, of course, has known this, or he should have been informed. Durko has known that. There's a political decision made, and that decision was poorly made. And again, not listening to the situation right now. We are really in a situation right now where AGOA is the trade agreement with the US is in doubt, and all these kind of things. And especially also, we have an ANC government or a national government, a national unity, but the ANC is being a big part of that, claiming to be the proponents of democracy and human rights and the rights of people for independence and all that. And you see, then they invite Iran, which has a track record of killings and suppression of civilians and women and all these kind of things. And we see it on the streets right now. And it's too late to react, as you say. It's too late to react when they're here. That they should never have been invited in the first place, and that is the problem.
One would say then, how would they have not been invited if all the BRICS Plus countries would have been invited? Again, is this a place where, once again, our decisions are coming back to bite us, where we are signatories and we are signing up to this formation called BRICS Plus, which includes Iran, but we have to turn on the other end and say, no, you must withdraw and not participate?
Yeah, but I think it's not, not all BRICS countries are participating. Brazil was not part of this. India was not part of this. So South Africa, of course, has a choice. They could have, South Africa said, no, we're not going to participate in that. And also the military value of this, compared to the state of the South African Navy at the moment, it is very limited. So why is it that you needed to do, what kind of political signal was it that you wanted to actually send by participating and hosting this and inviting Iran for this kind of exercise? Was it just to tell the US that you're not going to tell us to do what to do and to stick it, basically, or because then, of course, then you doesn't read the room very well, and the whole idea of being non-aligned and what's going on at the moment is not, you're not reading what's the international situation very well, and especially because South Africa is so dependent on trade with the EU, with the US and others, and a bit with China, but Russia and others are not important in that sense. So what is it what kind of political signal are you sending? And I think that's back to a pattern we have seen in South African foreign policy since maybe 94, is also that we've had this, to a certain extent, ideological position of we have the right to fight and be the voice of the global South and these kind of things, but also that you overplay your hand, that South Africa has the right to act and no one could tell us what to do. And the problem is just we have a situation right now. We have a presidency in the US who doesn't buy into this. And the consequences of that can be quite severe in terms of course, trade and sanctions and tariffs and all these kind of things, and maybe being excluded from AGOA, which of course would have a tremendous effect, negative effects on the South African economy. So this is quite strange, and it is a kind of silly, naive kind of foreign policy, which is, again, points to bad planning, bad understanding of the situation right now, and maybe some ideologues or certain personal interests being at the center here, because it is not the interest of Africa being at the center, and that is what scares me the most. So the biggest problem, again, to say what I said, to quote or rephrase what I said before, the problem here being that Iran was invited in the first place. That is the big issue here.
Prof, appreciate your time. Let's see there, Professor Thomas Mandrup from the Royal Danish Defence College.